Kim.
Happy Monday.
Didn't you wear that shirt last Monday?
No. I have 3 of these same shirts.
Happy Monday.
Okay. All right.
Geez.
I know we've been talking a lot about design. So I thought I would jump right back in and talk a little bit about white space.
Oh,
What is white space?
white space is just undesigned space, but it's intentional.
That's right.
Intentionally undesigned space. And it's such a break for the eye. It gives your eye a place to rest, and it's almost like the road that leads the reader through a page. It lets them know where to go when.
Right. So what does the white space do on this particular spread?
Oh, it breaks up all of those mods.
That's right. So I can tell that this is a mod, and this is a mod, and this is a mod, and this is a mod, this is a mod, and this is a mod. And I've got varying white space. I've got pretty long, like a rail of white space here, creating my eye line.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've got maybe a half a pica, or even maybe 2 or 3 points separating pictures here. Mm-hmm. And then I've got wider places here. And then I've got a different size rail of white space here and here.
But within the mod, you do a tighter spacing to make it really clear that those things go together.
Right. But do you let your pictures touch each other?
Personally, no, because then you can't tell where one picture ends and the other one begins.
I don't like when they're all cluttered up
Stresses
beside
me
each
out.
other. It does me too. So that's just something to think about. They did a really good job of
They did a
spacing
great job.
this.
Yeah. And so then you can use the wider rails of space to divide your totally different content mods.
Right.
Right?
I love that this is maybe not content-y as much like we were talking about, but I do love this spread on animals. Good God. Do a thing on your pets and put
Anytime
the
you
people
put
in
an
it.
animal, I'm happy. Where's
Yeah.
Jasper?
I know.
Right?
The eye line. Notice it breaks right here.
Yeah, and that's a great wide rail of space there. But then here, I feel like this is more of a medium rail.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have tighter space between this puppy and this kitty.
Yes, exactly. And if you can, get people in the pictures with your animals too, because that's
my
really
favorite.
fun.
Well,
How about this elementary book you have in front of you?
I mean, I think a lot of times with an elementary school, they think, oh, we'll just do collages of pictures, and that's okay. But what if you tell a little bit more? So like this book, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different stories on one spread, and it's real easy for me to count that even without reading any of the headlines because we have those rails of space between the mods. So we've covered a bunch of different content and topics, and they've even got some captions in there.
Right. Just because you're in elementary
Right.
doesn't mean you can't write a caption.
Right.
Elementary kids read too.
They
Right?
do. They're actually learning, and so they really like to practice.
Yeah. I love this because a lot of times my schools will say, I want a page on the fall festival. Well, maybe you don't need a whole page or 2 pages on the fall festival. Maybe you only need one of these mods,
Right.
which is going to have the same amount of pictures maybe as that full page did. And you can get more coverage in there and
Right.
more
Like,
kids.
see, here's another one. And so again, this could have easily been 4 or 5 pages, but by condensing it down, it is much more coverage friendly. You're getting a lot more kids. And what do you notice about the size of the things on these pages?
They vary. I mean, you've got smaller mods, bigger mods. You've got close-up pictures, far-away pictures.
And they're also, even the biggest ones are not that big.
No, but they're plenty big. I mean, I think
I'm old
sometimes-
and need glasses, and I can still see them.
Exactly. This is a good example as well of white space and how to use it.
Yes. And again, look at the variants. You have single people, you have groups of people, you have candids, you have pose shots, you have vertical, you have horizontal. There's so much going on here. Even in the mods, here's a nice horizontal mod that contrasts nicely with these great vertical mods.
Right.
So it doesn't feel so one-dimensional.
Exactly.
Not only the sizing of your pictures matter, but the sizing of your text. And this, you know how last week I said, like, pick a thing that is your thing that's going to bug you and that you're really going to stick to? This is one of mine.
So what should a font size be for captions?
So for a serif or a sans serif traditionally sized font, which most of them are, I would say for a caption, 8 to 10 points.
Yeah, at most 10, and I'm more of an 8 girl.
I'm more of a 10 girl, but you know, we can find that in the middle. What about for a story, like your copy?
12 point. Any kind of story, anything like that, any kind of even something in the mod that you're writing about sometimes.
So let's say you're writing a story, you're using 12 point, you're using the assigned font, and there's leftover space at the end. What are some things you can do? Because I'm assuming BS your way through it is a bad option.
Right. Well, you should go back then and add a quote or do something that makes that copy better. Obviously, you should try to increase it. You also can use one of the tools that creates a little bit more space between lines.
I love that. It honestly, I do that on purpose a lot of times, not to fill in the space, but for design purposes.
How about like subheads and headlines?
Oh, I think you can just have fun with those.
I do too, but I think if you're doing a book, especially a high school book for competition, you need to understand that
The hierarchy.
Right. So your headline is a little bit bigger. Maybe it's an inch tall, 72 points. And then maybe your subhead's 24. And you need some consistency through the book with that kind of stuff. And in quotes, sometimes if you even vary your font a little bit to show it's a quote. So like if I'm using function and then I decide to use function light for my quotes. So I show that this quote, and I obviously put the quote marks around it.
You can italicize it. You can change the color of the font.
I also want to say when you're doing a quote, make sure you put that comma inside the quote mark.
Is that your thing that gets on your nerves?
At the end. So, quote, what they said, comma, quote, said Billy Smith, period. Okay? That's the proper way to do that.
How can you make better use of those boring portrait pages?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So, even though the portrait pages are not boring, and yes, we do call them your mugshot sometimes, but we don't mean that ugly, okay?
These are the pictures that you didn't want your mom to buy in the first place.
This is the historical documentation, though, that you went to school there, okay?
It's important, yeah.
So use those to do modular design, do stories, do your club pictures in them if you want to do club pictures.
That's what they did here.
I love that.
They did club pictures, they did a quote about the club, and then they've got some other quotes down here at the bottom about specific clubs.
And this is just stories. Like, these are just modular stories.
They're so fun. This is a great place to put coverage of kids that isn't a traditional type of coverage.
Right. You can do anything.
How about this? Next week, let's talk about some different types of non-traditional coverage, because those things are fun.
Yeah, and it should be, because that's your life.
Yeah.
We got to show what students are doing besides just going to school, just going to events.
Yeah.
I always tell my staffs now that COVID did one good thing for us, is it turned yearbooks into telling stories about humans instead of just stories about events. Not everybody goes to the football game. Not everybody likes math. Not everybody likes any of those things. So you have to put in things that people want to read on your pages. On that football spread, why not put a little mod that's different? It tells a story about somebody who plays fantasy football, or somebody who's beaten the John Madden football game, is so good at that. Or what I do on Friday nights besides going to the football game. I mean, there's always something else to put that makes something that everybody wants to read, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. All right, that's next week.
Okay.
All right, maybe you can change shirts by then.
Nah.
Now is the best time to recap your fall coverage. Why? Because it's still fall. So if you've missed something, there's still time to go back and catch up. Cross-reference your sports with your athletic director. Reach out to whoever handles your master schedule for the school and make sure there are no events that you've missed. Have your students brainstorm all the things that have been happening around campus and make sure you have equitable coverage. If you find out you've missed something now, you still have time to fix it. But the one thing we can't do is go back and recover a missed opportunity. So don't let fall end before you take the time to recap your coverage.
I want to give you a really quick rundown of Picture Day. So there's a couple of things for you to know. Number one, we don't want your portraits until we have all of your portraits. That means your original Picture Day, your makeups, and your retakes. And if you are a tracked school year-round, you need to get that for every track. So be sure to reach out to your photographer and make sure that you have all the photographs before you send them to us. Which brings me to number two, which is you don't upload those photographs yourself. We do that for you. The plant has a process that takes the names and flows them in with the portrait so that you don't have to manually type in all of those names. Nobody wants to do that. Number 3 is there are some things we need you to do with these portraits. You're going to check for names. You're going to check that the faces and the names match up.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is the emergency broadcast system.
We're going to check all of those things. We're going to give you all the details. I'll put some information below and we'll follow up again in a few weeks whenever it's time for you to actually start doing this. So number 1, don't upload them yourself. Number 2, don't do anything until you have all of them. And number 3, when you get ready to flow them, we will give you more information. Now you can go ahead and set up your portrait pages. I'm going to link a video in the tip of the week this week that will walk you through how to do that in Layout Pro. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always shoot us a text.